hello, welcome. Let's talk about the 11 books I read in August. One of the better reading months quantity-wise, but worse quality-wise. We'll get into it. As always, I'll be sharing my thoughts, ratings, possibly controversial opinions, all in a spoiler-free fashion. Y'all know the drill, so let's get into it. Starting with my lowest rated book of the month. Not book of the month, but book I read this month. The Good Neighbors by Sara Langan. I picked this up from my TBR because I was like, I'm in the mood for a thriller. I don't really have one in mind, but hey, how about I give this one a go? As I have not even heard a whisper about this book anywhere in the book community. And yeah, that's probably for a reason. Trust me, everyone would be better off if we just kept this book under that rock it was living under. This was unfortunately a 2-star for me. At best, maybe a 2.5, but Sarah was not feeling generous when she rated this. I think my necklace was hidden under my shirt. Love that. In this thriller, we follow the Wilds, who have recently moved into this cute little suburban neighborhood. In this neighborhood, everyone knows everyone, and all seem to follow in the footsteps of their queen bee. However, as the Wilds continue to try to settle in, a sinkhole pops up smack dab in the neighborhood park, and whoops, the queen bee's daughter falls in, causing suspicions to arise around the Wilds. The first third of this book was interesting. It was what I expected from a thriller. However, the rest of the book fell off. It fell into that sinkhole as well. Everything in this novel was so overdone. I swear if I had to read one more sentence about Bitman, I would have blown a vein. I don't even know if that's an expression. It is now. Also, the way every single child in here talked and what they talked about made me so uncomfortable. I was like, why are these not even 12-year-old children talking about these things? This is so inappropriate. And definitely not what 12-year-olds talk about. Yeah, I was once 12 years old and I nor my friends ever talked about these things. I sure would have remembered if we did. And yeah, the author was probably trying to elicit discomfort, but I don't see how that aspect added to the conversation. Like, why was that needed? I would describe this as a weird thriller. So if you're looking for that, I still wouldn't recommend it. This was not it, babe. Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I gave 3 stars. Where do I begin? If you don't already know, this romance basically revolves around Magnolia Parks and BJ's Valentine's relationship, or better yet, lack thereof. 3 years ago, their relationship ended, and even if all they really want is to be together again, BJ instead sleeps around with other girls, and Magnolia practically goes out and gets a new boyfriend every week. But these two can't stay away from each other and have been towing the line between friends and something more ever since that fateful night BJ Valentine broke Magnolia's heart. Tear. I know a lot of people love this book, and I didn't not like it. I gave it 3 stars. But this book exhausted me. Magnolia and BJ are quite literally the most exhausting couple I've ever read. This novel took the love triangle trope and turned it in to a polygon, a toxic polygon. And you know when you want 2 characters to be together, but you just know the whole time that they're not gonna end up together even though they would be better together? That was me. That was me the whole time while reading this book. I just don't know what y'all see in BJ. Everyone's fraternizing over Valentine. Well, England, he's got me hook, line, and sinkered. And honestly, that's fine. I'll keep England all to myself. I'm fine with that. I would rather not share. I feel like nothing happened in here, but somehow it was still 450 pages. This book is just comprised of the same scene written 50 different ways. That's kind of impressive, actually. That's talent right there. Why do I want to continue with this series though? And that's ultimately why I landed on 3 stars. When I think back on my reading experience, I don't remember having a particularly great time, but I kind of still want to pick up the next book in the series. And since Daisy Hates, I believe, doesn't follow Magnolia, look, I'm not gonna say that it's never gonna happen. Okay, let's briefly talk about the Summer I Turned Pretty trilogy by Jenny Han. Listen, overall this series was okay. I had fun. Could I have had more fun with other books? Probably, but Jenny Han, her writing, I could read it all day. And that's literally what I did for a week. To get the most out of these books, I'd recommend that you read them back to back, which won't take you long to do. These are fairly quick reads. I made a whole separate spoiler-free reading vlog in which I read these 3 books and then watched the adaptation to determine which was better. So if you want more of my thoughts and opinions, make sure to go check that video out. It's a fun one. I had a lot of fun with it. Stolen Air by Sophie Lark. Why did no one tell me that this is basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling? This is me in fairy tale retellings. Though I will always view that movie differently now. Stolen Air is the 2nd book in the Brutal Birthright series and follows Nessa, Callums from Brutal Prince's sister, and Mikola, the head of a rival gang. One of the aspects I adored about Brutal Prince was how fast-paced it was, so starting this book, I was a little thrown off by how much repetition there was of information each time the POV switched. Miss Lark, I am sorry to inform you, but I am not dumb. I promise you, once I start the next chapter, I will not forget what happened previously. The beginning of this book was so similar to Hooked, which I believe I read last month. I'm talking like, I don't want to get sued for defamation, but possibly plagiarism level of similarities here. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I did look it up though, and Hooked was released a year after Stolen Air, so I'm not trying to insinuate anything about Sophie Lark here. If anything, it felt like Emily McIntyre read this book, took a few scenes, stuck it in her book, changed the font, published it, and thought no one would know. I knew. Again, this is all allegedly. I just wanted to point that out. Okay, one of the most frustrating things in this book, or any book for that matter, is when one of the characters says, to quote page 288, I know this is wrong on so many levels. Then why are you doing it? Now that I know that you know what you're doing is wrong, why are you doing it? Where's the explanation, the backstory, the reasoning, some justification for your action? The romance aspect in here, I wouldn't say I loved, but I did like the story and how everything unfolded. I actually liked the romance between two of the background characters more so than the main romance. It was more angsty. I know. Y'all are probably tired of that, but for them, it really worked. I really liked it. To start off my 4.25s of the month, let's first talk about Mary Jane by Jessica Anya Blah. The best way I can describe this book is a quirky, domestic, coming-of-age historical fiction novel set in the 70s that is centered around a young girl, Mary Jane, as she learns about who she really is and what she really wants in life. The way Mary Jane's household operates and interacts with each other in their community was so absurdly old-fashioned, but is totally something I can imagine taking place back then. This was such a sweet, heartwarming read that also explores some more complex themes such as class and gender roles in 1970s society. I especially enjoyed how the author depicted the characters. Sometimes in books, a character's flaw is their defining trait, like that's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of that character. However, in this book, the author created multifaceted characters, flaws and all, but in a way that a character flaw just created depth rather than being something all-encompassing. If you're someone who listens to 70s on 7, this book is going to be your jam. Pun intended. I couldn't fully connect to the music. I'm more of a coffee house gal, but I can totally see how that aspect could be a shining part of this book for readers. For me, the loving family dynamic is what kept me turning pages. Remember in my summer TBR video, I was like, oh, I wonder how Mary Jane's shoes are gonna play a part in here. That was not the right kind of Mary Jane being referenced. Let's leave it at that. This next book, Queen of Thieves by B.Z. Marsh, I picked up a few months back solely because I thought it sounded interesting. Typically, the books I read are recommendations from the book community, which is great and all. I've discovered some of my favorite reads that way, but I don't know, sometimes I miss just going into a book with no expectations other than the synopsis intriguing me. Like, it's hard to imagine now going into a bookstore and just picking up a book, reading the back, and buying it. Like, when was the last time you did that? So this book, although I did get it through my Book of the Month subscription, I had heard nothing else about prior, and I was a bit hesitant because this is a historical fiction novel, which don't always land for me, but this one hit so hard. This novel is set in 1940s London and follows a gang of female hoisters, aka shoplifters, led by the infamous yet still slightly terrifying Alice Diamond. We follow the story of young Nell as Alice takes her under her wing and morphs her into one of her expert shopping buddies. But as Alice starts using Nell as a pawn in the ongoing war against a rival gang, all the while Nell has a hidden agenda of her own. This novel had so many layers to it and morally gray but lovable characters that you can't help but form a bond to. I miss reading from these characters. This book is told from Alice and Nell's POV, and both characters were easy to empathize for, and it was stunning seeing them face what life threw at them head on. The Book of the Month podcast had an episode discussing this book with B.Z. Marsh, and it kind of blew my mind hearing her talk about how women did some of these things to get away with shoplifting. Yes, this novel is based on real women who used to, I don't know, stick merchandise in their knickers. And ignoring the unlawfulness of it all, that's kind of slay. If you like British literature, feminist energy, and a mystery/thriller undertone, I'd highly recommend giving this book a go. I loved the feminist female gang aspect of Queen of Thieves so much so that I wanted to pick up another book with similar vibes, and so I picked up Killers of Certain Age by Deanna Rayborn. This is a mystery that follows 4 female assassins who for the past 40 years have been employed by the Museum, an international organization whose goal is to get rid of individuals that have avoided the law. Felons the justice system has let slide by, these chicks get rid of. But as their retirement is approaching, the museum plans to give these ladies a farewell gift in the form of their own assassination. And so these older women buckle up their fanny packs and embark on a journey to kill or be killed. Oh my gosh, this was such a ridiculous fun time. I loved reading from these snarky badass women as they used misogyny and ageism to their advantage. What I learned from this book is that you should never underestimate older women. You never know, they may be assassins. But my main issue in here was our protagonist Billy. She seems more like a caricature than a fleshed out character. And the mystery aspect I did find pretty obvious, but I was reading more so for the humor rather than a complex mystery. Sorry about that, my humor died. Shocker. Where was I? This book had me glued to the book, to the couch. Camille, my brother's fiance, hi Camille if you're watching this, really enjoys the Veronica Speedwell series by Deanna Raybourn. So one, Camille picked this book up, or borrow it from me, hit me up. And two, I feel like I need to get my hands on that series now. Even though I know it's kind of outside my thriller/romance comfort zone, I just would really like to read more from this author. And I know Camille has been wanting me to read that series too, so I think it needs to happen soon. My 4.5 of the month was Thank You for Listening by Julia Whelan. I enjoyed this a lot more than I thought I was going to. I think because, you know when you read a subpar book and then you're kind of turned off by that genre, but then you pick up another book from the same genre, read it, and then fall head over heels in love for it, making you remember why you love that genre in the first place? Well, someone better pick up my heels because that was me. I'm not funny. I knew I would enjoy the audiobook aspect in here, but I did not expect to stay up till 2 a.m. devouring this novel. I was like, I'm just gonna read till page 250, 50 pages later. Actually, I'll put it down at 300. You know how well that worked out. I think I did have 3 coffees that day, so that probably contributed. That night. Fever dream. I could see myself rereading this novel for things I missed during the first half that became important later on. And that's how you know I enjoyed a book, is if I even consider rereading it, because I'm not a rereader. I did take off half a star because some parts were overwritten, which is a bookish pet peeve of mine. If I'm choosing to spend my time on a book, I do not need it to be any longer than it needs to be, eating up time I could spend elsewhere, such as reading another book. But every character in here, including the side characters, were so well developed and dynamic, which gave the story that added depth. And I especially loved how our male MC was so unbelievably himself in every situation he was thrown into. Rom-coms and a singular POV pose the risk of the love interest being kind of flat and stereotypical. But my man Brock, not him, he exuded confidence, but not in like a douchebag way, because this man, he would do anything for Swanee. This book was one of those rare romances in which I didn't prefer one MC over the other. Wrap Swanee and Brock up and call them a package deal because this is a 2-for-1 special. And then lastly, my only but well-deserved 5-star of the month was The Weight of Blood by Tiffany D. Jackson. This was so phenomenal and heart-wrenching but nuanced, and such an important read that has so much to say on racism, white complacency, microaggressions, the list goes on. The Weight of Blood is a modern-day Carrie retelling that follows Maddie, a mixed girl who is white passing, but people don't know that she's black until one day her hair, which she straightens every day, curls up in the rain. And when people find out about this, it's horrendous and hard to read about the racism and bullying she faces. So when prom rolls around and Maddie exacts her revenge, I was cheering her on from the sidelines. For one, Tiffany D. Jackson fantastically weaved the commentary throughout other underlying elements, but also I was so impressed with how she kept us hooked. Even though from page 1 we knew what was going to go down at prom. Throughout the book there are podcast chapters told from the present day, which I really enjoyed. I really liked getting an outsider's perspective as they interview different professionals in different fields and people who used to live in that town. There were also numerous Carrie references, which I, someone who hasn't even seen or read Carrie, was able to pick up on. I do really want to watch Carrie now. Do I think it will be as good as this book? Definitely not, but I want to see what inspired this powerful, heart-gripping story. This is a book that I will continually shout about from the rooftop. Actually, no, that seems like a bad idea. But from my balcony, yeah, perfect. Catch me outside being like, anyone want a nuanced Carrie retelling? Anyone? Trust me, you're not gonna want to skip this banger. Those were my August reads. I was in such a reading mood this past month. Hopefully that reading energy will continue over in September. The question is now, for September, do I binge the rest of the summer books I own, or do I flip the autumnal switch and head full force into my fall reads? I don't know, what are y'all doing? September, it's a weird month. I feel like once classes start back up again, I'm like, it's fall. Even though like I still have like a month left of summer. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. It really does help me and my channel out a lot. You can also comment, interact, subscribe, all that fun YouTube stuff. I'd really appreciate it. Let me know your favorite read from August, along with your thoughts, hot takes on any of the books I talked about in today's video. I hope you are having a fantastic day, a fantastic week. I'm sending you my monthly positive reading energy for the upcoming month, and I will see you in my next video. Bye.